Recently in Oklahoma, that's a weird situation in which 911 operators actually told someone that it was okay to shoot.
This was a crazy story and a very sad story. We have a young mother. She's 18 years old, and she has a 3-month-old son at home. And what had happened earlier is that about a week prior to this incident, her husband had died of lung cancer. So she was at home, and I guess one of the individuals attempting to break into the home had basically talked to her during the time of the wake or something along those lines. So this individual basically knew that she was home alone in this location. And on New Year's Eve, this individual, along with another man, attempted to break into the home to try to steal narcotics. And I don't know if this was because he had been going through the lung cancer and they had somehow known that they had prescription drugs in the house, but the individual had a knife. She, the woman of the home, had two guns. She had a shotgun and another gun, and basically these individuals were attempting to break into her home, and she had put a couch against the door. She gets the shotgun, calls 911, and basically is acting for directions as, what should I do? What should I do? These guys are trying to break in. I guess the police are on their way, but the time period for a violent act to occur can happen relatively quickly. So she's asking for directions. What should I do? And eventually, a police officer got onto the line and said, "Do whatever you have to do to protect your child." And then eventually came down to, like, he's coming through the door and they're like, "Shoot!" So it was a very dramatic incident. And basically, there's been a review of the facts and circumstances surrounding the actions of all involved here. And basically, the 911 operator did not want to give any advice, and that's correct. I don't think any governmental employee like that should be saying you should do this or do that in reference to the use of deadly force, because you don't want to have somebody come back later on and say, well, you told me to do this and this was totally wrong. But in this instance, in Oklahoma has a law similar to what the state of Indiana does, and the citation for that is Indiana Code Section 354132, and it talks about the use of force to protect a person or property. So in this instance, she's got both, and it's something that we learned in law school called the Castle Doctrine. And the Castle Doctrine basically says that your home is your castle, you do not have to retreat from your castle, and you can protect yourself. So the question always becomes down to, is it reasonable force in relation to what's happening? Well, if someone's attempting to break into your house and commit a felony therein, a forcible felony, then you do not have a duty to retreat, meaning you don't have to, if they're coming in your front door, you don't have to run out your back door or climb out a window to run away from this felon. You are justified in using deadly force if it's reasonable under the circumstances. So that's what Indiana law is. But there's also something that everybody needs to keep in mind in reference to use of deadly force. Notwithstanding the right to use deadly force to protect yourself from a forcible felony, you also have to understand that once that person who was attempting to commit the felony says, whoop, I need to stop here, either I'm getting beaten up or I'm going to get out of here or I've changed my mind, I want to leave the circumstances. If that person attempts to leave or say that they're done and they are attempting to back away from the scene, at that point in time, when the encounter is being withdrawn and the person communicates that their intent to stop and leave, you cannot just shoot them. If they're running away and they did something terrible, you can't shoot them in the back or something along those lines. So therefore, you can go from being a victim to having committed a crime. So again, there's always that reasonable person standard that we always like to apply in all types of situations. We got to make sure that that's what's happening, that you're acting reasonably under the circumstances, but you do not have a duty to retreat from your home under Indiana law, and Oklahoma had the same type of law.
What do you guys think about this? 219-845-1100. Dave Gladish is in here. It's a story of a shotgun-toting 18-year-old mother who killed an intruder on New Year's Eve after a 911 operator told her, do what you have to do to protect your baby. Sarah McKinley was alone with her 3-month-old son in their Blanchard, Oklahoma home. McKinley says two men, one of whom she had met previously, appeared at her door Saturday night and tried to break in. 2 days earlier, she had buried her husband. McKinley said she asked the dispatcher, I've got two guns in my hand. Is it okay to shoot him if he comes in this door? I'm here by myself with my infant baby. Can I please get a dispatcher out here immediately? I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you to do that, but you do what you have to do to protect your baby. The lady says, I waited until he got in the door. They said I couldn't shoot him until he was inside the house, so I waited until he got in the door, and then I shot him.
Killed him. Then the other individuals with them fled the scene, and he's been charged. They have him in custody.
He was hitting the upper torso. 219, can you imagine the fear sitting there with your baby and some dudes trying to break in? Let's go to George on line 1. Hey, George.
Good morning. Yeah, they had that story on Nightline last night. And anybody who's really interested, I guess if you got the computer machine, you can go to the interview. She had a double-barrel 12-gauge and a six-shooter of some kind, and they kind of reenacted it. And she, the 911 operator told her to do what you have to do to protect your baby. And when they were coming through the door, she said, "I've got a gun and I'm going to use it." She warned them as they were coming through the door. I live in Gary, and I've been here 7 years. A neighbor of mine about 10 years ago had occasion to do something similar at his home, shot the guy in the foot. But frankly, anybody enters my house without me wanting them to come through that door, they've got a rude awakening, or sleep, I guess you could say, coming to them, because especially after seeing the interview, that this is a tiny little petite 18-year-old girl who's got a newborn. It's like messing around with a mama bear when she's protecting her cubs. You get what you pay for if you're coming through somebody's door and you're not welcome, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think she was totally justified.